So having said all that stuff, the combination of building up for the draft day, for all the talk, all the sites that tell you how great you're going to be, and the kids' competition of, oh, this team talked to me, this whatever, and building up for that day, and all the dad that knows everything, all that stuff comes down to an apex, I think, is that the word? And it's one day in the OHL, and it's called draft day, and all the shit that for maybe 3-4 years that you were building up for this big day, on draft day itself, you will find out exactly where you are, and there's no bullshitting now. So the dad that had nothing to lose by telling you all the shit that he wanted to just spew for 2 years in a row about your kid or other kids comes to fruition very quickly on draft day, April 21st, 2023. And your kid is either, or you are either drafted or you're not. You're drafted where you thought you were or much later. And there's nothing else to talk about. All the bullshit. So, and if you're you're either going to be an early pick or a late pick, or you're not drafted at all. And is that bad? Like, no, it's not the end of the world. But that's my point to all this, is that everything is built up for in Canada, and not all kids, because some kids want to go to college anyways. But for the kids that want to play major junior hockey, it's built up for one day, and that's the draft. And it could be devastating. I've seen it. I was with a kid that was just lived down the street from me, and I saw him not get drafted. And I thought he would, based on what I was hearing as well. And then it came to the 10th, 11th, 12th round. He just went up in his room and cried because he heard where he was supposed to be. And it's a sad thing to watch. But having said that, it's sad to watch. But this is why I say I try to prepare parents: is don't let your kids get to that point. Like, especially when you don't understand the game, it should always be like, you just got to work hard. Don't listen to that. That you have to do it, or else your kid could get devastated. And again, I've said this before. I've only had one person that was truly, truly not devastated by the draft, and that was Aaron Ekblad. Everybody else, even like Zach Cassian, went third overall in the OHL, he was happy and thrilled, and not really disappointed, but he would have liked to go second or first, right? You think Shane Wright wasn't a little disappointed last year in the NHL draft? Of course. So Aaron Ekblad was drafted first overall as an exceptional status in the OHL and first overall in the NHL. So he has nothing to be disappointed about. You can't get any better than that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I want to maybe put in the mind of parents is the draft is just an opportunity. It's not the end all be all. It's opening a door for you, which is great. Like, that's an awesome opportunity that you can capitalize on. But it's not everything. Like, most guys that get drafted never play a game, and so you keep that in mind, because there's guys that they'll get drafted, they never play a game. There's guys that don't get drafted, end up playing, or they find another route. And especially now, how connected everything is. Like, yesterday I was talking on the phone with a coach from Alberta, and he was talking to me about trying to get guys from Ontario out there to play. And 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't as easy to accomplish that, because it wasn't as connected of a hockey road. But there's a lot of different avenues and paths. And I also don't want to oversell the late bloomer thing or the unconventional path thing, because most guys that play in the OHL are first to fifth rounders, I would say. Most. That doesn't mean other guys don't play. But like, we have got our guys that have played in the OHL that were drafted later than that. But the average is like 1 to 5. But my point is going to be, is that because that's all that is capable, or is it because guys that are drafted outside of round 5 kind of don't really commit themselves or buy in because maybe they can't see the path that way?
I would say for the most part, it is what it is. It's at the time, as a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, they're not better hockey players most of the time. There are kids that choose to go to college or the U.S. program or whatever, but for the most part, you've got your best players.
But that's I know that, but I'm saying is the fact that, because if the average age is 18, guys that even rounds 1 to 5, most guys' first year is going to be when they're 17 turning 18 or 18, right? So is it because so if you get drafted from round 1 to 5, you're marked as one of the best players in Ontario at the time. Agreed. As the years progress, is it that the guys that are drafted later than 5 or not later do one of these where they stop caring, they stop trying, they stop whatever? Or is it that everyone's trying equally and the 1 to 5s are just better? And
Oh, both.
I think
It's
I
both.
was going to
Yeah,
say I
it's
think
both
it's
for
both.
sure.
So
It's both for sure.
how many guys that are past that 5th round just take their foot off the gas and don't give themselves a chance after that? And my point of saying all this is that I don't want to oversell the unconventional or the later path, because it's just not the reality. Most guys that are playing are rounds 1 to 5, but that there's a portion of that that's in your control where you just aren't committing yourself as much as you did when you thought you could get drafted.
Yeah, that's the grit factor.
Yeah, right.
That's
And
the grit factor again.
that component you can control to a certain degree. So that's all I'm trying to point out.
Yeah, no, that's very good. So yeah, and I also want to say that getting drafted, not getting drafted is not the end of the world. And to your point about overselling, I don't want to undersell some of the picks that are the early picks that are just really good and really work hard, because like there is a lot of truth to, it's mostly true, but here's the thing: at the draft, just like the NHL, when you're looking at drafting a player, let me go into this first. Okay. So, because it flows with what I was saying. So, the draft is done. Okay. April 21st and 22nd, the draft is done. You are drafted really late, or you weren't drafted at all, or whatever. Okay. Here's what happens. A lot of people think that was a bunch of bullshit. That's what you hear all the time. It's bullshit. The connections. My son is better than him. That kid went 3rd round. He's not a 3rd rounder. He's 8th at best. And they start telling everybody where that person should get picked. And then you also hear the things, because you got to cover your ass now. So, well, we were supposed to get drafted to the Sioux in the 4th round, but they took someone else. I hear this all the time, man. So they were supposed to go 4th round of the Sioux, but this other guy took it. Well, there's still 10 other rounds, dude. 9 other rounds, 11 other rounds. So it's not that spot. It's like you didn't get drafted. Okay. That guy got drafted because it's bullshit, because my buddy that knows a guy said he should have been drafted here. That guy paid a guy to get him drafted. Well, let's say it happens. Apparently, there's something going on right now. Let's say that happened. It wasn't your 1st, 2nd, 3rd round pick that got paid out.
Well,
whatever.
But it goes back to the exception, not the rule thing, right? Like there's exceptions, of course. You can find the one time a guy did this, or the 1% that did something shady to get their kid in the draft.
Whatever.
That's not the majority of the picks.
Right. That's right. So then the scouting service. This is bullshit, because the scouting service had them ranked higher than these guys. Well, the scouting service isn't the real service. They're not picking the team. The college guy, the colleges we're going to take him. They took him. It's like all this stuff. But the bottom line is this: if you're whatever team running a team, and if you want to work here for the next 10 years, 5 years, or 20 years, you have to take the best players. So you're not picking someone because it feels good, sounds good, it's a nice story. You're actually looking at players that are going to be in your system, or have a chance to play in your system. That's the best way to put it: to have a chance to compete for a job in your system over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So and then when they're looking at these players, they're not looking at 16 years old, Eric, you're a 1st round pick, and that doesn't mean you're going to be on a trajectory of being a really good player in 4 years. They scout hockey players for a living. They might say you're a good player now, but that's it. That's all you got. I can see it. I've seen this 100 times, a million times. This is all you got. I'm not taking you. And that's why some guys slip, even though the scouting service or the mums and dads over there say he's way better, right? You're trying to fill a spot, and to not make the team necessarily right now, it's to make it over the next couple 3 years. So that's part of it. So it's not bullshit. It's not bullshit. It's my business, right? If I'm the PowerTech in the OHL, I get to choose what players I would like on my team. It's not bullshit. It's just like my employees, right? If someone comes and applies for a job, and I just say, well, your skill level is not where it needs to be, number one, so you're not qualified. Don't take offense to that. Number two is, like, if you can't invest yourself to be committed to be an amazing worker day in, day out, and maybe go above and beyond, then I'm not interested in you. So it's like no different than a hockey player. And if you're not willing to work over the next, you might have to do some of the shit work for a while to get higher up in the company,
Mhm.
right?
Well, and
So
the team, like you said, the teams and that they look for different things as well. So even if it's not even necessarily the best players all the time, it's like the right
yeah, the
players.
right players. Yeah,
So like if you're like people, if you're have a family, if you have kids, it'd be really nice to have a Corvette, but you have 4 kids. So how are you going to drive them around?
yeah,
Even if you can afford the Corvette,
yeah.
even if you can afford it, it's like, yeah, I would like to buy that, but I also have 4 kids, so I can't strap 2 to the roof. So I just
That's right.
can't pick that car,
Yeah,
And so it's
exactly.
the same. It's the same with hockey players. Sometimes there's a better whatever that means player on paper, but it just doesn't fit the model that you guys are looking to fulfill as a team. So there's a lot of factors because they're just people making choices, man.
Yeah,
Like, that's what it is.
yeah. Well, so